there and tomorrow, and we'll see what's started. All right. I've got some controversy to go over today. And I normally, very honestly, I normally try to avoid these subjects. But I felt like I needed to do some things today and to address some stuff. So, if you would be so kind to share this and invite this with your followers, this is going to be very good for leaders. This is going to be very good for those of you that are in churches. Yeah, I've been resting. I've been sleeping like a pregnant guy. I had to ask my wife. She had something to tell me, but no, she does not. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Let's see why we can't get these numbers up. And let's see why we can cross over to 19 million hearts. Hey, Jacole, good to see you. Let's see why we can't cross over to 19 million hearts. Thank you so much. God bless you, Tyrone. Yes, I love the Bahamas. Hey, 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 hey. Ambassador LPW, hey, hey. Thank you, Redeem. Thank you, sir, from DC. Yes, I will be in DC. The Uncanny Prophet. To God be the glory. Corey B. God, good to see you. Good to see you. Hello, Tarina Terrell, Miss Dimples. We need you in Miami. I need Miami about right now. If I see one more ounce of snow, I'm going to have a fit. Next week, I'm in DC. Chicago has good schools out here. Certainly. Are you a teacher, Emory? Let me know. Because I know I've got a little pool. From St. Martin. Wow. God bless you. From New York. God bless you. All right. Let's go ahead and do some work. And Iowa. I don't know nobody in Iowa, man. So let's do some work. All right. And let's do some work about this subject. The name of the church, again, I will be at tomorrow, is Eternal Hope of Glory Church in Chester, Pennsylvania. Apostle Hal Best. And then next week I'll be in the Baltimore, D.C. area at the BWI airport or something or another. So I'll let you guys know. All right. All right. Let's do some work. Hey, Jackie, good to see you. I'm sending you scope hugs. All right. Tonight I'm going to talk about the spiritual father fiasco. And I'm going to do some slight biblical expose and then some observations that I'm making. But I want to start with this premise. Here is the premise. If you are freezing, then you might want to try to come out and come back in. Ferguson's Global, God bless you. Is that Prophet Jonathan? Hey, man, I love you. I hope you're doing well. But I want to deal with something because the premise of this is that I despise abuse. I don't like abuse. If you share that burden with me and you don't like abuse, then repeat that. I don't like abuse. Good. Give my love to your wife and the babies, will you? I want you to put that down. I don't like abuse. Write that. Thank you. Thank you. Eddie Johnson. Thank you. Thank you. I don't like abuse. I don't like it. I don't like abuse emotionally. I don't like abuse relationally. I don't like abuse financially. I don't like abuse spiritually. I don't like abuse sexually. I just cannot deal with the injustice of abuse. And one of the challenges that we're having with the global discussion, I think, it's probably more Western than not, but the discussion about the whole spiritual father deal, one of the challenges is almost more often than not, these titles and terms and these relationship descriptions are being used to conceal a very high level of abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, relational abuse. And so whenever I find abuse in an area, a subject matter, I find myself kind of delving into it to provide clarity to the body because I can't stand. I don't think any leader that loves the Lord should be able to swallow God's people enduring such profound abuses under the name of spiritual anything. So this is with that in mind. Like so many of you, I do believe that in spiritual parenting, I do believe in discipleship. In fact, one of the chief earmarks of my church, the All Nations Worship Assembly of Chicago, or the network of churches that I oversee, the Gate Fellowship. One of the chief earmarks of what we do is the culture of discipleship. We believe in discipling people. We believe that two are better than one. We believe in iron sharpening iron. We believe what the Bible says, that there are people who can bring, like a Priscilla and Aquila, that brought Paul into upgrade in his method and message and methodology. So I think that you would have even cursory examination of this subject by the scriptures should be able to show you that it is a legitimate biblical concept, that there are men and women that God anoints to raise others up, give them a place, give them language for destiny, impartation, a system of impartation, a way to minister to them. Let me take these headphones out because that may be a challenge hearing. Yeah, so we've got a lot. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite stories about this whole principle is in the book of Kings, when you're dealing with Elijah and Elisha, where you don't find Elijah brutalizing his way into Elisha's sphere or Elisha's life or Elisha's world or any of that. But you find that when Elijah got ready to get caught up by the chariot of fire, that Elisha cried out a desperate cry, my father, the chariots of heaven and their horsemen. And so he saw him as a father in his life, even though he had a father. And from what we know, he had a pretty good father. They had work. He was working with his father, but the tenor of the relationship that he had with Elijah was obviously different from his natural father. It didn't replace him. It didn't negate him. It didn't mean that he was not needful. So I think that it needs to be said that if you are in the context of an inner city church, some suburban even, and across all denominations, across all streams, when you take on the responsibility of pastoring people or shepherding people, you kind of almost instantly become a parental figure, an authority-like figure. And the reason why those two are inseparable is because during a person's lifetime, the first example anybody has of authority is a parent. You know, when you are born into a family, you are a toddler, you are an adolescent. The very first example you have of authority, obedience, belonging, naming, provision, protection, context, education, even the very first example you have of all of that are your parents. And so because those are the earmarks that are kind of the beginning point of your understanding and your ability to relate to authority figures actually for the rest of your life, when you come into the kingdom of God and you realize that there is a structure, some may say hierarchy, I would like to say a structure and rankings of authority that garner and administrate spiritual activity both in people's lives, over cities and over nations, then subconsciously you kind of end up relating to those people or seeing those people or understanding those people through the lens that you were trained or sculpted by from the angle of your upbringing. So it's almost inevitable that if you're going to pastor, if you're going to be an overseer or any such type of role, that you're kind of going to have parental-like responsibility, parental-like conversations, parental-like positions over people, okay? So that's important to realize, that the two are not really avoidable. But the problem is that because there has not been, to my knowledge, in the African American church expression, there are some exceptions to this. I don't know, at my upbringing, I've pretty much been in church all my life. I don't know that there's ever been any elongated, highly developed, rigorous biblical explanation about the validity of this and how to place leaders in your life. Who does it? Is it something you pursue? Is it something people name you? Do you go and find one? Does one come and find you? Is the dude that you get saved under, you join his church because you accepted the Lord in his house and he was the old guy over the church. Does that automatically make him the dude that's going to carry you into destiny? What do spiritual fathers do? Do they ordain you and let you sit with them in certain places? Do they tag you and then they kind of come around significant events when the spotlight is on? Or is it a relationship? Is it a paperwork agreement? If I join your organization, does it automatically mean that I'm engrafted in the story that God is writing through you? And so there's a lot of different things, a lot of different concepts and ideas and ideals that have led the discussion on the whole spiritual father thing. And then in the I think it was probably the late 60s coming into the 70s, there was a movement called the shepherding movement. It was predominantly Caucasian, but then African Americans started taking it on. And you had a lot of books that came out of that movement that ended up basically highlighting, and this is the basics of the movement, was that if you did not have a man or a woman that related to you as a spiritual father, the essence of that movement was that if you did not have a man or a woman that related to you as a spiritual father or as a spiritual mother, that you were illegitimate, that you had no right to ministry, that you were insignificant, that you were rebellious, that the quality of your Christianity was in suspect or in question because there was nobody referring to you as a son or anything like that. And so that was a massive abuse because people started feeling like they couldn't buy cars without asking the permission of a spiritual parent, that you couldn't date who you wanted to, you couldn't work where you wanted to, you couldn't choose what you wanted to wear. I mean, you could barely pay your bills without. So, you know, with the restoration of any truth, you have abuses and you have extremes, and that's one of the things that kind of happens when you have any real truth that's restored. You're going to deal with the abuses that come with that particular truth. It's like that with anything. With the baptism of the Holy Ghost, you had extremes. With the restoration of the kingdom of God, or the apostolic, the prophetic deliverance, you had extremes. I mean, you have folks during the restoration of the deliverance truth that taught that any snitch or twitch was a devil. So when the Holy Spirit breathes upon any truth, you're going to suffer certain extremities. Because it takes a while for the pendulum to center itself to give us solid theology for what is and what is not. On the other side of all of that, here is where I think we are. We are dealing with a multi-generational and a multi-seasonal issue where people, both professionally and spiritually, have become more interested than ever before in destiny. I mean, people are hiring life coaches. And if you'd have asked anybody in the 60s if life coach would have been a viable career that would have been bringing you an enormous amount of money, everybody would have been able to say a resounding no. Nobody would have been able to project that at some point in the future that life coach would be a real career, or coaching anything for that matter. Nobody would have been able to see it. Doctors, lawyers, attorneys, judges, all of that. But the fact that around the world, America especially, probably for the last maybe 10 to 12 years, there has been a resurgence and a revival of careers that center on helping people to discover personal purpose. You've got self-help books. You've got mental health specialists. I mean, counselors are booming right now. You've got life coaches. You've got success coaches. You've got the guru thing going on. You know, everybody finds a realm of specialty, a realm of mastery, and they post their careers and their efforts by that realm, and they kind of become experts in those realms. The core of all of those career pursuits, though, is helping people to find out who they are, why they are, where they're going, what they have in them. All conversations about potential, all conversations about purpose, all conversations about where your life is going to end up. So we need to pay attention to this trend, because it means that around the world, people are concerned about why I'm here. How do I handle life? Where am I going? What's going to happen? How to do it better? Whether you like it or not, whether the church acknowledges or not, people around the world are really, really interested in why am I here, right? So that being said, here is the duality to such a conversation like that. Hey, keep giving me those hearts. These numbers are dropping. Here is the duality to a conversation like that. The duality is if you confront people with the fact that they don't know who they are and they don't know what they're going, and there is a purpose beyond what they know, and there is an assignment for their being on earth, then what happens is all of the stuff that has happened to them as a byproduct of the life they have lived begins to surface through these needs and through these conversations. So if you got the church talking about destiny, you got the world talking about destiny, you got the heterosexual community talking about values and family values, you got the homosexual community talking about being born this way and the right to be happy, you've got the national discussion over the pursuit of liberty and the rights to happiness and all of this stuff. What's going to surface? The real condition and the real state of the soul as by life and through what has happened to them. So when you sit by a person, for example, on a bus, in a church, at work, you're not just sitting next to an individual, but you're sitting next to a story. You're sitting next to a history. You're sitting next to values. You're sitting next to views. You're sitting next to perspectives. You're sitting next to a combination and a conglomerate of things that have already been a work in progress that determines their definitions, determines their expectations, determines their desires, determines their fears, determines their phobias, determines their worldview. All of that determines, because I want you to, if you're paying attention to this, people speak the language of their life. People speak the language of their life. If you're taking notes or following this, I want you to type that in. People speak the language of their life. If you don't get that, you're going to miss everything that I say from here on out. People speak the language of their life. What that means is that what I've been through determines how I communicate, what I desire, what I need, what I fear, what I think I can do without. It determines my immunities. It determines what I believe about what I'm capable of. You speak the language of your life. It's why you choose the friends you do. It's why you choose the lovers you do. It's why you chose the career you chose. It's why you live the way you live. It's why you resemble and reflect things that are done to you and, more accurately, invested in you, because people speak the language of their life. All of that now becomes the responsibility of an authority figure. Because when you have all of this wrapped up into one story, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, or even 60, what happens is when you join an assembly or you come into a paradigm where you have a leader, then without knowing it, you kind of look to that leader to interpret the happenings of your history. You're not doing it on purpose. I don't know that you go in your car to do it or you make a homework assignment out of it, but whether you know it or not, what you lean into when your pastor, your spiritual authority, whoever you look to in the Lord, as they're preaching or as they're teaching or as they're dealing with you subconsciously, what you've landed on their doorpost with is an expectation, or probably more accurately, a desire to interpret, to translate, to uncode, to decode, to unlock the happenings of your life, to make sense of what you've been through, to make sense of what you've seen. Mar Lewis, I'm showing you special affection tonight to make sense of how you've done it. It just comes, and some people's word does it, some people's word does not do it. But here is what makes this whole thing so dangerous, is because whether you want to admit it or not, we are all very vulnerable. This is a very vulnerable season in the body of Christ. We are vulnerable because of what we have seen. We have been vulnerable because of what has happened to us. We are vulnerable because what we have done. We are vulnerable because of what we have seen. We are just vulnerable, and we are susceptible to the endless sways that come in life from culture. So, the challenge with this vulnerability is that when you come into the church and you come into a Christian setting, or you come into a situation where you have an authority, that authority now, what makes them effective, I want to say this the right way, is how they address your vulnerabilities. I love you too, Keisha Cross. Now, this is why most of our church environments and church communities are disastrous. Because what makes a leader anointed for your life and for your story is what they do and what they say that addresses the vulnerabilities, the fractures, the openings, the gates, the open doors to your life and to your story. That's important. If you expect for the words of a leader over you to give you victory, then the way they do it is by addressing, by preaching, by counseling, by ministering to, by prophesying to, by casting the devil out of the vulnerabilities in your life. That's what makes this whole discussion so sensitive, because we're dealing with vulnerability. We're dealing with authority fears and authority abuses and authority issues. Now, here are the challenges with this. When my greatest cringe and my greatest concern about this whole spiritual fathering fiasco, I just like using air quotes if that bothers you, is that I feel like there is no real accountability to these terms. I feel like people on the recipient end of this are more victims than people who are on the giving side of this. I feel like the malicious tendencies of this whole discussion is done by those in authority, and I feel like those on the recipient end are more on the deceptive side of it. If I'm on the recipient of this, I'm vulnerable. Life has happened to me. If I'm one of you, I probably got a ministry call, some type of ministry thing upon me, so I'm vulnerable. Attention from authority figures that are healthy means the world to me. I crave it. I love it. I need it. But as a malicious pastor, leader, authority figure, whatever, that has no real intention on being invested with you, no real intention on being aware of your foe, the foe of your future, the adversary of your anointing, or the enemy behind your assignment. I don't intend to ever really relate to you in any real way or give you any real private space where I can know who or how you are. That's, this side. You just give me $500 a month and you become a son by virtue of this fee, by virtue of this paperwork, or by virtue of the fact that I have been around you for so long. True story. Let me give you an example. Maybe I shouldn't. See, I don't know. Sometimes I underestimate my influence, so some of my examples are a little... What I'll say about this. I often give the scenario when trying to describe this to people that we are all born in a hospital, okay? I want you, if you were born in a hospital, give me an emoji with a thumb up. Find some emoji to let me know you were born in a hospital. Come on, let me know. Let me know. Good. C.T. Robinson, you're on it. Good. Neil Justin, you're on it. Good, 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 good. Come on. All of us were born in the hospital. Come on. B. Miguel, you were born in the hospital. I was born in the hospital. Now, I want you to let me know how many of you that were born in a hospital still live in that hospital. If you still live right now in the hospital you were born in, give me another thumb. No. 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 I didn't think so. I would actually be concerned if you would still live in the hospital you were born in. What I mean by that is this. There are leaders and there are people of influence who take ownership of you, who love to take credit for where you go, what you've done in life, what you've been, what you've involved out of, because they were the doctors that delivered you from darkness to light. The evangelists and the elders were the nurses that cleaned you, that helped coach you on breathing and helped you to understand what it was to cry and what it was to feed and what it was to be changed when your diaper needed to be changed in your infancy. But just because a man was responsible for delivering you from darkness to light, and he gathered a team, or she gathered a team around you to give you milk when you needed it and change your diaper when you needed it and to understand how to feed, does not mean that those are going to be the people that you resemble. How many of you have the DNA of your doctor? Huh? Can you tell me that? How many of you rely on your doctor for shelter? How many of you rely on your doctor for food? How many of you rely on your doctor for an inheritance? When your doctor dies, are they going to leave you an insurance policy? Now, all of us get that, naturally speaking, but when we're dealing with this spiritual father fiasco, we don't see it. We don't see it. And to me, it's plain as day that people are using these manipulative terms to control people, to recruit people, to take advantage of people's rejection and people's identity issues and people's insecurities. So maybe you just, like, for example, I was born and raised pretty much in a church that was my great granddaddy. I love that man to death. I mean, I loved. He was my first pastor, my first example of spiritual leadership, and there was 4 generations of us alive in the same church. My great grandfather, my great grandmother, my granddad, my mom, and me. We were all alive in the same church. My great grandfather is the one who ordained and licensed me to preach all the way back in '99. I mean, but that was my doctor. He was my literal maternal granddaddy, my maternal great-grandfather. I loved him. I'm a lot like him, actually, in my preaching style. But ministerially, destiny, future, we look nothing alike. So I can't give him credit or credence for the formation of my future, the comprehension of my calling, because he wouldn't have had the language to know it. He wouldn't have had the language to articulate it. He wouldn't have even known how to hold me accountable for the future that was to come because it was blocked from his eyes. But did he change my diaper a couple of times? Yes. Did he baptize me literally? Yes, my great-grandfather baptized me with water. Absolutely. So he was the doctor, the instrument, and though we were blood, wow, I feel the anointing right there, and I don't even know why. Though we were blood, he was the instrument of God to get me from darkness to light, but not from light to destiny. And that's the difference between the whole spiritual father fiasco. There is an anointing that's going to take you from darkness to light. And in some people, that same anointing will take you from light to destiny, but it may not be everybody's story. It's the difference between a crossing guard and a teacher. You have somebody that can take you from point A to point B to make sure you don't get hit by a truck, but they're not going to open up the book and teach you when you get inside the building. And those teachers are going to spend a lot of time with you throughout the day, helping you learn and master the subject matter of your book. But you better believe when the bell rings and 2:30 is over, the most of your life that teacher takes home is your grades and your papers. That's what some of your bishops are. Some of your denominations are. They are teachers that are grading your papers and giving you papers. But you don't leave, Pastor Winfield, I love you, bro. You don't leave that teacher's office to go home with that teacher. There is a home that is responsible for your safety, your sanity, your security, your provision, your future, your name, your food, and most importantly to me, your inheritance. Here is the problem with this whole spiritual father fiasco, okay? I am seeing, and I guess it's there, it's not new. I just end up being irritated with it today. I'm seeing a lot of people claim that this is who they are to people, and they have no ability to create inheritance. They may have the ability to transfer some gifts, but any traveling evangelist can do that. I mean, but to me, If a person, man or female, does not have the power, the wherewithal, the fortitude, the resources to create inheritance, and I don't mean in the sense where somebody has to die to give you something. I mean a type of life to walk into, a type of assignment to walk into, an appropriate context for your future, the building of a thing that you can have a place in, a space in to flourish as you are planted there. The majority of the people that I have seen claiming that they've got sons and daughters in the Lord, one of my sons, one of my sons, one of my daughters, they don't have the ability to create inheritance. Dude, like fathers, spiritual parents, mentors, coaches, they are invested in building big people with big stories, with big legacy, right? And so that determines the conversations they have, the rebukes they give, the counsel they invest, all of that. But at the end of the day, they're vetting people, resourcing them, mentoring them, cultivating them so that ultimately they won't brutalize an inheritance. So then, if you don't have the power to build inheritance, are you really in a position to be calling yourself somebody's spiritual parent? Let's say the inheritance is an upgrade, a teaching, a level of a paradigm shift. Maybe that's so. But if you don't have that yourself, you don't have anything to give people. And so, my challenge is everybody giving wisdom, counsel, or advice, or letting you preach for them? Certainly that couldn't be what substantiates, or the pattern we see, at least by the scriptures, of somebody being a spiritual parent or one another. It's really sad. We went through a time, and to me, it's what makes it so dangerous is that we are living in a day where people's damage is so apparent. So we're reaching across the TV screens, father me, father me. We're reaching across Periscope and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, father me, father me. We're going to conferences, sitting in the back of the father me, father me, father me. And it some of it is not malicious. Some of it is just a real desire to have a man or a woman of God speak to their lives or speak to their thing. But the challenge is that we've got to be so cautious about giving people the right of access to our lives without knowing whether or not they are compatible for who God has called us to be. And so the reason why a lot of pastors get upset with me about this is because I don't go for the okie doke. I have said to you time and again, I'm not a part of the National Preachers Alliance of America, so I have no problems with divulging the secrets and the criminal behaviors of most of these Negroes. I'm sorry, guys. I turned in my card a long time ago. I don't go for the okie doke. But, I think from my perspective, you've got to be careful about inviting these people into your world without an understanding of their lifestyle, without an understanding of their habits, without an understanding of what they can invest, without an understanding of what they're willing to invest. You don't really, here comes the hate mail. You don't father people from pulpits. Necessarily. It's not really how it works. You don't really father people through books. No. In every other segment of life, we would call that abuse, and we would call that irresponsible parenting. If you're a single mom whose baby daddy is in jail, and the extent of what he's offered his children has been a letter from jail, you don't call him a good dad. You call him an absentee dad. You don't father people with rods and staff. You just, let me just put this on your forehead and make you a bishop in the Lord's church. Now I am your Episcopal father. No, and that's not the example we even have in the scriptures. If that thing was not a heart tie, and if that thing was not a relationship, if that thing was not a point of access where in a moment of crisis or calamity somebody would come for you, it's not what you see. What Elijah told, what I love about what Elisha said to Elijah when Elijah came into town preaching and he cast his mantle. Elisha was like, look, it's resolved. I've got to come with you. I've got to follow you. I see myself in you. There's something you've got to teach me. I know that you've got to unlock something in my life, for my future, for my story. You've got to envelop me with something, with what's on you. I've got to be immersed with your history with God and all of that. He said, but do me a favor. Let me kiss my father first. Let me say goodbye to my natural dad, my whoever carried me up to this point. Y'all got to read that story, man. That thing breaks me down. And what Elijah told Elisha was, what does he have to do with me? Now, he wasn't being shady. He wasn't being shysty. He wasn't being disrespectful. He was basically saying, what is going to come as a byproduct of you following this and tapping into this is going to be far superior than what you're going to get playing around with them goats and playing around with that stew and playing around with that manual labor. Wowzer. Wowzer. It was spiritual, intangible, but it would far outweigh what you would get plowing in your history. That thing is powerful. So, to me, to go from something as holy, something as reverential, something as specific, and something as direct as that, to a once-a-month prayer letter or a ordination certificate or a phone call a year to remind you that your dues are due, to me, I just don't know if that makes sense. I found out, I was visiting one of my churches a couple of weeks ago that I oversee, and I found out that there was a traveling prophet who came into town prophesying to the members of that local church that he, the traveling prophet, was to father them in the Lord. If that is not the work of a manipulative, probably emotionally defunct, relationally derelict leader, I don't know what is. I would never, even if I knew it by the Holy Ghost, I would never find somebody and say, hey, the Spirit of the Lord said, I'm your daddy. I'm the father you in the Lord. I'm the one that I would never say that to a person, because to me, that sets the tenor and that sets the tone for all of, and so it put that person, the recipient of that word, in a position now where they were like, uh-oh, so do I follow my pastor? Or now that this guy is telling me he's my father, maybe I need to get off the worship team now, or maybe I need to leave here now because this dude is willing to prophetically father me, but I'm in another church. Do I need to go to his church, which so happens to be several blocks away? Or the whole thing is just not integral to me, and it doesn't really lend up to being very fruitful. So I would be very cautious and very discerning about this. Another way that I differ with a lot of my colleagues on this issue is that I have not been able, now listen, I'm not gloating, but I've made a life, or I've made a career out of being a student of the scriptures. I'm not there yet, but it's my mastery and but that's the thing. I got to deal with somebody right here. I'm not. Here's the problem. I will judge. I'm called to judge. Let me deal with you about scriptural ignorance. The Spirit of God didn't tell Elisha nothing. He told Elijah, but Elijah did not tell Elisha, "I'm your father in the Lord." You've got to read the Bible, lady. See, this is what we're dealing with. People, listen. If you're gonna come for me, you got to at least have some Bible knowledge beyond Sunday school, because I'm going to deal with you. God told Elijah, go anoint Elisha in your stead. Elijah, and that's an end quote, sweetheart. He didn't come back and tell him, I'm your daddy in the Lord. So no, I will judge that. King of the clapback. Where was I? When you... So anyway... Yeah, when you're dealing with that and you're dealing with this, I was going somewhere with that. Somebody just pulled me out of my character. Yeah. When you're dealing with this whole issue about the whole fathering thing, I differ with a lot of my colleagues because I have not really been able to see in the scriptures, which is the basis of everything I do. I have not been able to see in the scripture where everybody had one. Now, I know that feels weird, and I know that feels like it brings up some rejection or some sense of something, but it really shouldn't. I mean, God knows what you need for your destiny. I know that mentors are necessary. I know that coaches are necessary. I know that discipleship. I think that everybody does that, right? Everybody needs it. There's not a person in the world who don't need discipleship, who don't need accountability, who don't need mentors, who don't need people to upgrade you, right? But if you can find it where every Christian in the Bible, all the thousands of them that were saved through the book of Acts, all the ones that were in the Old Testament, if you can show me where all of them referred to a person as a father in the Lord or a mother in the Lord, I will recant my statement. You probably won't be able to find it. So I think that's the major confusion, is that everybody feels like, I've got to find my father. I've got to find my mother. I've got to find my mother. I've got to find my father. And I just don't, the panic and the hysteria about the whole subject is I can't get to where I'm going without a father or a mother. Now, this is going to seem a little mean for me to say, but again, I'm using the scripture as my premise for this, okay? I think that you can have paternal figures in your life, parental figures in your life. I think that, for example, Paul referred to the church at Corinth as his sons and daughters in the Lord, but you don't see where he had relationships with all of them. He related to that church from a fatherly point of view because that church came out of him. He produced it, so he was the father of that house. But if all of those people had his cell phone number or went out with them or he made I don't know if I can prove that. So in a broad sense, he fathered that church. But we have other individuals that he clarified that he personally was invested in. For example, like Timothy, like Titus, Philemon. He had a number of them that he called sincere sons in the Lord, right? And so I think that we've got to bring our hearts out of a place of hysteria if it feels like somebody has not named us yet, and somebody has not grabbed us, because people are going to try it with you, especially if people are old and they are failures. Frankly, in ministry, they have nothing else to do with their time. They ain't built nothing substantial, and they known you since you were young. Yeah, you're going to be son. You're my son. You're my daughter. Y'all are good. Y'all are way more honorable than I am with stuff like that. Because I'll deal with if I don't care who you is, okay. If you ever come with me talking about some son, and number one, you have not invested nothing in my life, in my destiny, in my future. When I was going through hell and hell was going through me, I will deal with you on this spot. And some people have considered me very disrespectful because of it, but actually it's just me being very, very, very direct, right? So I'll tell people, if that's who you, ma'am, lady, you talking about son or something like that, then you owe me a lot of money, chick, because you were not around during the formation of, the duration of, the duress, the attacks, the catastrophe around my calling. And right now it's more suspicious. You probably would have had a better chance before people knew how I was. Now that people know me, you definitely ain't got no chance. You're talking about you somebody's mama, somebody's daddy, dude. I'll deal with you. So yeah, y'all a little bit more honorable with stuff. Maybe I should submit. I should learn from y'all with that. I think that's a serious a charge if somebody says you my son, you my daughter, but you can't tangibly prove how they have manifested that type of heart towards you. I actually feel like it's dishonest of me to agree and smile like just because you know me for a while. So I'll deal with you. Another major challenge with this issue is that I've only seen it in the Bible, purpose to purpose, position to position. I have never seen it random or arbitrarily. And so what I mean by that is it was Elijah to Elisha, it was Paul to Timothy, it was Moses to Joshua, which basically meant that, and unless I'm wrong, that although they're mothers and fathers, I guess, in the faith, that doesn't necessarily make them assigned to you particularly. Because every time Paul mentioned it, it was to somebody he was preparing for some position in life, not just in ministry, not just in, Paul and Timothy is an amazing story. It's a powerful story. It was preparing for another position in life. So here's the hardcore truth again, and I'm open for discussion. Here's the a hardcore truth is that if you have no intentions towards ministry, if you have no intentions towards having a destiny assignment in the kingdom, or you have no intentions towards occupying a space in the kingdom, if your intentions are to be a good Christian and to die and go to heaven or hell, whichever is your preference, I don't even know why you need somebody to produce something in your world. You do good with a teacher. You'll do good with a mentor. You'll do good with a discipler. If your intentions are to be a good Christian and you don't really have a call to influence, or a call to leadership, or a call to ministry, I don't even know what the big deal is about. Now, again, a lot of my colleagues are going to disagree with this because we like to buy and rent language to control y'all, okay? And to manipulate y'all and to make y'all do what we want y'all to do, particularly around anniversaries and birthdays. So we got to gather all of our sons so them offerings can be where we want it to be. So, I just told y'all I'm not with the okie doke. So, I don't even know if I have Bible proof for a person fathering or mothering a person that was not in preparation for a certain place to occupy. So I don't really know if that's the thing. So, another challenge with this is that I feel like it needs to be Holy Spirit orchestrated. I have known people who have tried to kind of manipulate a mantle out of me, kind of force me into that relationship. And let me say this. There have been times, and I'm not exaggerating, where for years in advance, I would know that I was anointed for somebody's life. Years. There have been times where I have known, yes, that's somebody that God's going to use me to raise up. That's somebody that God's going to use me to blow life upon and to disciple and walk with. Okay, I've known for years. Okay, that would happen, and I wouldn't say nothing. I have never, to date, walked up in somebody's face like, you know what? Get my water, son. Get my towel, son. Come on, daughter. You my daughter. Come on, daughter. Let me give you the microphone. I've never done it. I have known for years and not said nothing because I watch people. Because here's another dynamic to this, is that there are people, God will send you somebody that's going to take that position or that responsibility in your life, right? Here's somebody else that don't really read their Bible. Okay, Floham, I got to deal with you because you got flagrant. Matthew 23:9, do not call anyone on earth father, for one is your Father of God. Now, if you are scripturally savvy, you would literally understand why that verse does not mean what you mean it to mean, or else you're going to hell for referring to your father as your father. You call your daddy, right? So let's deal with you. I keep trying to tell you people I had a 4.0 GPA and 3 earned Bible degrees. So if you come for me, I got to come back to you. So here we go with the whole call no man father deal. When you're dealing with that, you were dealing with a contextual discussion about Jewish teachers who were teaching the law. Do you understand that? Okay, so unless you believe God is a schizophrenic, you've got to stop abducting that one little verse and making it fight all the rest of the scriptures, because people were referring to peoples as fathers before you had a New Testament. That thing started all the way back in the book of Genesis, where God called Abraham the father of many nations. So what you got to do is have basic Bible reading comprehension skills to understand that one sentence in a whole conversation is not enough to reverse the other principles. And you've also got to know who and what Jesus was referring to. So again, clappeth backeth upon you. What was I talking about? Yeah, I have known that a person would not be ready. There are people, for example, that God will send those types of people to. He'll send father or a mother or a mentor or whatever to you. But here's one of the things that I've known. I have sent back and watch for people to be ready to handle the responsibility of sonship. Because here's another important thing that you've got to know is that not only is spiritual fathering, parenting, mentoring, discipleship a responsibility, the act of being the recipient is also a responsibility. And there's a lot of people who want that voice, who want that word, who want that presence in their lives. But honestly, emotionally, mentally, they're not in a position to really handle that. They can't really deal with that yet. And so I have waited to see how people could handle being a disciple or being a servant. And when I identify people that I know I'm going to pour into, I don't ever say anything at first unless it's an emergency. There has been you can have it, Emory Diggs, it's your inheritance. Unless it's been an emergency. But I'll sit back and I'll watch how they handle other leaders. I'll watch how they respond to other leaders. Phraseologists, I love you. I love you. That's Prophet Todd Hall. I'll sit back and I'll watch how you handle other leaders, how you handle responsibility, how you handle authority, how you handle commitment to a vision before I invest myself. Because here's the challenge, particularly because, and I'm gonna deal with you about Metrons in a minute, but particularly because if you get the man or the woman that's supposed to be fathering or pouring into you or mentoring into you or whatever, and you actually get them, then your immaturity may say, I don't need nobody else. I don't need these elders. I don't need these pastors. I don't need these intercessors. I got to do. So I don't have to go through no process and no progress to get what I got. I got what I want. And there are other people that will be so committed to the father or the mother of the house that they won't be as committed to the house. And to me, in my Metron, that's a no. Now, here is what I mean by Metron. The Bible talks about not speaking. The Apostle Paul talks about not speaking beyond or above their sphere of influence. Every apostle, every apostolic leader has a sphere. Now, that sphere may or may not be the only thing they're anointed for. I have been anointed above and beyond my sphere or beyond my measure. But the apostle cautioned about judging things, criticizing things, or investing himself of things beyond his measure or beyond his sphere, right? So I have a sphere. I have a metron. I have a scope. I have a trajectory. The nations is where God uses me. Kings tend to be the landing point of a lot of my prophecies. I have a reach that's beyond my metron, but I have a metron, a sphere of authority, a sphere of influence. Now pay attention to this. There are people who are called into that metron, and there are people who are called out of that metron. There are people who are in that metron for a season. There are people who are in that metron for a lifetime. There are people who come into that metron and evacuate and evict themselves. There are people who are in other metrons that come back into that metron. So what am I saying? I want you to hear this, if my impartation responsibility belongs to those in my metron, I would be stealing from them to give it to one uncommitted unless I had a strict word from God. Oh, I want you to hear that. I want you to hear that. I said, if I would take the portion, the meat, the heritage that is the ownership that belongs to those that are in my metron and just randomly give it out indiscriminately without being measured, I would kind of be stealing from them. Now, again, I'm not being religious. There has been exceptions to rules, but I'm just using myself. Other ministers may disagree. But with me, listen, in the most part, when I have seen that I'm assigned to somebody, and it's probably going to turn into that type of father-daughter, father-son thing. It's primarily in the confines of the gate or all nations. Now, there's about one or two that I see that way that are outside of that particular metron, but at some point they're going to probably be. That's not going to be my dealings. I'm not going to be the one to do that. But if it's God, God knows where to put him and how to put it. It's a matter of when that has been the case with me, it's always been a disaster or an emergency, and I still have never been the one to say, this is who I am. This is what I am to you. This is what I'm going to do with you. So I would caution you. I feel a warning in my spirit. I would caution you, ministers, preachers, traveling evangelists, about trying to father your nephews, glory to God, and trying to treat Lot like he's Isaac. I would caution you about that. And I would caution you about going into other metrons looking for your seed and looking for your posterity. I don't go to my friends' churches scouting out who looks vulnerable to see if I can get myself in their lives. I don't go in conferences trying to see who looks desperate enough to need a daddy and a father and a mentor. I don't do all that foolishness. That's the work of desperate people whose anointing ain't strong enough to magnetize who's calling to them. If you got to go out and recruit, it means that there is not enough weight and enough clout in your mantle to pull the resources and the lives that are assigned to you from where they are to where you need to be. So I don't ever go anywhere recruiting. No, I'm not going to do that. What's on me is strong enough to pull who it needs to pull. I'm not going to ever go in there and give somebody a prophecy. Here is the Holy Spirit says I'm the one. I'm not going to do that foolishness. I don't have Bible for that. But what's on me is strong enough to magnetize who's assigned to this charge and who's assigned to this mantle. And everybody's not assigned to it. I told one of my sons the other day, and he's one of the first apostles I ordained. I told him, I said, look, man, there is a consequence for being tied to this anointing. You are going to get rewards and you are going to get inheritance, but you are going to also get some consequences. So if God assigned you to me, he knew that you could bear the weight and bear the criticisms and bear the judgments and bear the accusations and bear the whatever that comes from the outside looking in about being tied to certain anointings. You know, if you're assigned, you can handle it. But I think what happens is we see the preferred seating, and we see the carrying of the Bible, and we see the ability to say dad and say mom and to all that stuff and to show up. We see that. We don't see that there are consequences. My God, you need to hear that. For being tied with certain anointings. When the 12 were tied to Jesus, there were consequences that were tied to it. Now, they were grace to handle it, but when Jesus left, they got him. They couldn't hide out when they wanted to be regular. They couldn't do. Remember when Peter tried to betray Jesus? What did the little girl tell him? Your speech betrayeth you. That was a consequence that ran them into caves and ran them into hiding and ran them into stuff. So I would treat this subject with the fear of the Lord. Here's another major deal about this whole issue is some of you people out there, you got 30 spiritual fathers. Bishop Jordan was looking for you last night. Give Bishop Jordan my love, will you? I mean, you got 30 spiritual fathers. You got one for every day during the week. You had one for when you was a babe in the Lord. Now you got one now that you are adolescents in the Lord. Now you got one now that you're a teenager, and you're going to have one when you're an adult. What? No wonder you schizo and don't know what city you belong in and what church you belong in and what's your calling and who you're supposed to marry. You got all these different fathers and daddies. This thing is really crazy. I mean, and you know, the thing is you can revere a person as a father in the kingdom, and you could, like, I have a lot of people in my world that I see as fatherly men. Bishop Joseph Garlington, that's Pop Garlington. He's a father. I have access to him. I can text him. I can call him if I need something. He's a father. That doesn't mean he's my father. Bishop Joseph Matera, a great man of God, has been there for me in critical points in my life. I could call him and help walk me through. He is a father. He's not my father. So I got one father, and that's going to be it forever. Greg House is a fatherly person. He's a counsel of mine. He's somebody that I relate to for decision making and wisdom, but he's not my father. I don't go around calling everybody that gives me an opportunity my father, my dad in the Lord. So y'all have got to stop with this multiples of stuff you inviting people in your world. I'm going to tell you why. Because to a mature minister, what it's going to look like is you got motives. And the reason you got a new daddy now is because his new daddy got new opportunity for you and got a new spot for you. And what some people mean, that's why I watch people when they even bring the conversation up, because here's what a lot of people mean. When people come and say, hey, I think you're my father in the Lord, or I think you and your wife are going to pour into me. I'll wait on you whenever you're ready, but I'm here. I'm just going to get in position. I'll wait. I'll watch them. And what happens is what they really mean. Hear this. What they really mean is, can you watch me until the next famous dude comes? What they're saying is, you're my father. I'm attached to you. Where you go, I go. They doing the whole Naomi Ruth. Your people will be my people. My God, your God, blah, 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 blah. But what they really mean is, can you babysit me until the next famous dude comes around, or until the next conference comes to town, or until the next prophetess lady comes to town and throws a prayer shawl over me, or whatever the stuff is. So I'm very, mindful of that. Now, again, like the Elisha case, there has been times where I knew, yeah, I'm gonna pour into that one, or yeah, I'm gonna help cultivate that one, or yeah, and most times I've been right, but I don't ever make the first move. I watch. And I promise you, I watch for years. I watch posture. I watch commitment. I watch behavior. I watch character. I watch communication. I watch all of that stuff. I watch that stuff, right? And I know when it's right to begin to move in to give them that opportunity. So I would be very cautious about having all these people with these handprints on you to try to claim where you're going and what you're doing and where you're taking. So I just think you got to really be very, very, very cautious with that stuff, because it lends up to abuses, which is the whole premise for this stuff. I know people that use this language to cover their sexual relationships with people. I have cast demons personally out of young men that were in sexual relationships with people that they referred to as fathers in the Lord. And the only reason they used that term was to make it non-questionable on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media outlets. So they'll say, this is my father in the Lord. And what they really mean is, this is my lover. I have known it to be so with men with women, where they say, this is my daughter, and they have a sexual overture that dictates their discussion. Guys, listen to me. I'm a man who's acquainted with evil. I feel like that's a lot of what the Lord takes me about. But even the longer I stay in ministry, I still feel like levels of naivety breaks off me by seeing how wicked people can be with what they do and how they use this stuff. So I just think you need to release the fear of the Lord in your life with that stuff. I mean, I've seen men claiming daughters in the Lord that had them doing sexual favors and performing sexual acts on them. I personally, this is personal, this is not scriptural. I personally believe, like, if a male is an unmarried pastor, I don't know that it's wise that he be dating members of his congregation. I personally think that if you are a shepherd, you shouldn't be dating sheep. I think you need to date outside of your congregation and not inside your own, because it makes up. What if it doesn't go well? What if it breaks up? When I was a single pastor, I didn't date people in my church. That was just weird. You don't date people that you have a spiritual oversight with. But again, it is one of these things that comes with the issues of not being able to uphold integrity with this whole spiritual father, spiritual mother thing. So I can't tell you, and I'm being literal. I can't tell you. My firstborn is probably on here somewhere, Elder Apostle Raleigh. I think we have I could say probably about 11 or 12 men who are in ministry that we have personally ministered to, that have been in sexual relationships with men over them in authority, and the way they concealed it was with the whole dad thing. And I just pray that everybody out there doing this gets brutally outed and brutally exposed. I just pray that the fear of the Lord comes to everything you do, and I pray utter disaster to and ruin to your entire ministry concept if you've done this without being repentant or turning, because you're breaking people, and I know you're breaking people because you're broken. And I'm kind of talking now like you're watching me, so I'm going to just obey God. If you're out there and you're doing this to people and you are using this relationship and these words to sexually harm people, I'm going to release this to you tonight as a warning to repent. Because God is serious, and God does not want you breaking people with your own brokenness. So I'm going to just assume that you may be one of the 1,000 people on here watching this because I felt like I need to say it, but I'm going to just release that warning to you. If you are a bishop, an apostle, a prophet, a choir director, a community choir person out there, I'm praying that you repent. And I'm praying that you turn and that you find some accountability. And I'm praying that somebody over you in authority can quarantine your damage. And a lot of these guys, what they do is they submit to somebody who don't know to look for that. So they'll go and find them a lightweight dude who don't know to look for this. They'll go find a little storefront church where there's a big fish in a small pond, and they'll go find a little religious fellowship where nobody knows to look for those tendencies in their lives so that they can get away with what they're doing and not have anything they do be questioned. They don't ever really do well submitting to somebody under a greater rank that has the right or that knows to look for demons and tendencies in your relationships with people. So if you're watching, just repent. It's not worth it. Confess, open up about where what you're doing, and open up about where you're going. And I want us to be careful with this language. So I could go on and on about this and on about this spiritual fathering thing, but we need to use the fear of the Lord. God knows what you need. Don't force it. Don't rush it. It'll come, and have direct conversations about it and do it. But it'll come, and if it doesn't, God, listen to me. Here is how I want to bless you tonight. I'll end with this, okay? Let me end with this, because I felt like I've started to wax prophetic, and I want to pull out before I have any open visions and all that stuff. I'm going to close with this. No matter where you are in your life, no matter where you're going in your life, no matter what your destiny is, no matter where your future is, no matter what your assignment is going to lead you to, here is a guarantee. I have a guarantee for you. And here is your guarantee. Your guarantee is your life will always be staffed as long as you follow God. I know you're out there and you're like, man, I know God has anointed somebody somewhere for me. That is the truth. God has anointed someone somewhere for you. They may or may not be in your same city. They may be in your city and you just haven't met it. They may be right around you and you just don't know them right now. But I tell you by God, God has anointed somebody somewhere for you. Your decision, though, and your movement, though, and your posture, though, is going to determine how fast they manifest and how fast they unveil themselves and God reveals them to you. There's a scripture that says your teachers will no longer be hidden from you. I believe everybody goes through a season where their teachers are hidden, but then in obedience, in forward movement, as you obey the Lord, some of you may have to leave. Some of you may have to go to a different church. Some of you have to get to the right church, whatever. I don't know what your story is, but there's going to come a time in your life where God's going to reveal your teachers to you and anoint them. So don't let the lies of loneliness, the lies of deception, the lies of I'm not worth it, or I'm not going nowhere where nobody thinks I'm important. Don't let that stuff deal with your mind and deal with your soul and deal with your conscience. Believe that God is talking to somebody right now about you. Right now. He's talking to somebody right now about you. He is dealing with somebody right now about you. He is putting the power of God into somebody for your advantage and to your end. You've got to just make the necessary steps to activate that thing and release it in your life towards the direction of your destiny. So be aware of this, that for the rest of your life, as long as you obey God, you will be staffed forever. You will be staffed forever. You will be staffed forever. Your life staff is already in place. You just got to obey God, and God will do your staffing. I probably got like 5 more hours of teaching I could do on this, but y'all know I got to travel tomorrow, so I'm going to cut it right there. Hey, but if you were blessed, give me some thumbs. Can you do that? Give me